Revelation. Today we explore the question that tortures hearts and confounds minds. Do avoidant exes come back? In this video, we'll journey through the secret corridors of human attachment, unraveling the paradox of the one who fled, only to cast a longing glance over their shoulder. Prepare for vivid tales and sharp insights that will illuminate the shadows of avoidance. Imagine a winter's night in an ancient forest, the moon barely visible through skeletal branches. You wander, heart heavy, calling for someone who once held your hand and whispered promises of permanence, only to recoil at the very thought of closeness. That echo in the dark is the calling card of an avoidant ex. They vanish like smoke, fearful of warmth, yet eternally drawn back to the embers they once left behind. Let us begin with the nature of avoidance. In the grand tapestry of attachment, the avoidant soul is the thread that slips between our fingers. They prize autonomy above all else. Intimacy is a threat, dependency a prison. In childhood, perhaps in a finely furnished chateau of European aristocracy, this personality learned early that reliance invited disappointment. A lullaby left unfinished, a promise broken, and suddenly the cradle of security transforms into a cage. As adults, they soar on wings of independence, yet they carry a restless ache for connection. Now, consider the story of Violet and Marcus. Violet, a painter of luminous chiaroscuro, met Marcus at dawn in a gallery where half-finished canvases hung like open wounds. He was the man who admired her solitude, praised her independence, yet flinched when she reached out for his hand. She loved him fiercely, an intensity that frightened him into silence. One evening, he slipped away under the guise of wanderlust, promising letters that never arrived. Violet wept, then painted. Years later, Marcus returned, grayed at the temples, with letters clutched in trembling hands. The distance had made his heart throbbing with regret. Still, when Violet drew close, he paused, uncertain. His pilgrimage was complete. He had come back to the one who let him go, but the same fear that drove him away lingered. This tale reveals the first truth. Avoidant exes may indeed return, but not necessarily as the lovers you remember. They return wounded, shaped by the solitude they once craved. Their homecoming is a fragile bridge between remorse and renewal. They stand at your door like hesitant pilgrims, uncertain if old roads still lead to open arms. So yes, they come back, but often on tiptoe, half blind and half afraid. Yet let us not mistake their return for a guarantee of fidelity. Consider another vignette. Before dawn, in a Wellington pub, a writer named Eleanor met her avoidant ex, Oliver. He arrived with eloquent apologies and promises gilded with sincerity. She, a poet of thunderstorms and heartache, welcomed him in. Nights passed in rekindled laughter and whispered dreams, but at the slightest hint of emotional depth, Oliver retreated into himself, as though the very act of loving might undo him. Elena discovered that avoidance is not cured by admission of error. It demands transformation. And transformation is the arduous climb of a mountain that many abandon halfway. In that light, the second truth emerges. An avoidant ex's return invites possibility, but not necessarily resolution. Their presence stirs hope, yet without sustained change. History repeats itself in a tragic refrain. You find yourself at the crossroads. Do you accept the tender apology of the traveler, or do you guard your heart against the storm that once ravaged it? Now, let us traverse a third landscape, one of inner metamorphosis. Perhaps the avoidant ex returns because they have tasted the bitterness of isolation and found it wanting. Perhaps they have seen themselves in the empty mirror of solitude and resolved to evolve. This is rare, yet not impossible. In a remote monastery in the Himalayas, a former avoidant named Ravi spent months in silence, confronting the phantom fears that once made his heart a locked chamber. When he emerged, he returned home with hands ungloved, heart unveiled, ready to face the tender equations of love. His reunion was not a reprise of old wounds, but an overture to a new opus. They walked through sunlit vineyards, discussing vulnerability like seasoned philosophers. Every moment of shared fear became an invitation to deeper trust. And so, the third truth. Return is but the prologue. Transformation writes the rest of the tale. If your avoidant ex has done the inner work, if they speak openly of their terror and your needs, then perhaps their return heralds a new chapter rather than a rerun of the past. But beware the trap of yearning. In the quiet dawn after their departure, how often have you whispered their name into emptiness? How many nights have you sketched their silhouette against the stars? Your longing becomes a canvas upon which any return is painted in golden hues, obscuring the jagged edges of reality. The fourth truth is a caution. Do not romanticize the avoidant ex's return. Balance your hope with skepticism. Demand evidence of change, consistent communication, vulnerability when vulnerability threatens to overwhelm, and the willingness to lean into discomfort rather than flee from it. Finally, ponder the question at the heart of all this. Do you need them to return? You stand at the threshold of self-discovery. The world beyond avoidance is one where you sit alone and find strength in your own company, where you learn that love does not demand sacrifice of self for acceptance. Before opening the door to their tentative knock, ask yourself, have I grown? Have I healed? Do I welcome them because I miss what was, or because I believe in what could be? The answer to "Do avoidant exes come back?" is a labyrinth of sometimes, maybe, and if. They may return, drawn by the gravity of memory and remorse. They may stand before you, broken and pleading, or confident and renewed. Yet their homecoming is only a threshold. What matters is what happens once they cross it. Will they walk through with arms open, or will they linger at the doorway, fearful of the warmth that beckons? The power to decide lies within you. For in the grand drama of attachment, you are both author and actor, crafting the ending that your heart deserves.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.